Jerusalem Dateline. Analysis by CBN President Gordon Robertson and Jonathan Shanzer on what comes next in the Iran conflict. Plus, resilience under fire, inside Israel's bomb shelters, and caring for the caregivers. CBN Israel supports a local group aiding the displaced. All this and more on this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell, along with CBN reporter Paul Petit. Paul, welcome.
Thank you. Always good to be here, especially on the heel of Holy Week.
Exactly, yeah. The war between Iran, the U.S., and Israel has now entered its sixth week. The questions are, what is the end game, and is there still hope for regime change?
CBN President Gordon Robertson had the chance to speak with Jonathan Shanzer. He's the executive director of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Here's what he had to say.
As I've heard it from folks in the know, within 4 years, the regime could be back and stronger than it was if we're not careful. What I really want is an outcome where the U.S. says, we did this. The regime has fallen. The Middle East has changed. We now see an era of prosperity and more stability in the region. These things are not easy to achieve, especially in an era where our enemies refuse to surrender. I can't remember the last time we have fought an enemy in the Middle East, let alone anywhere else in the world, where they say, you're right, we've been beaten, we're done, we're not doing this anymore, sort of like the Japanese after World War II. It just doesn't happen, but we can still impose our will. We are a superpower here. I want to see us bring down the regime. I think it's possible to do it in another 2 to 3 weeks, but it will require us to solve for Strait of Hormuz. And the U.S. needs to gain more of an advantage here, have more leverage over the regime, and then force them to capitulate. This is what Donald Trump seems to be aiming for, and I sure as heck hope that he's able to do it.
Well, I frankly don't see the regime giving up. I think they're hardcore ideologues, and if they were to surrender, they would be assassinated from within. They so desperately believe in their ideology, even at the expense of their own population. I don't think they view themselves as Iranians. I think they view themselves as some kind of army of Allah, and they're trying to impose that on the world. Iran is just the sort of the staging ground for it, but they want the world, and if they give that up, it means they've given up their self-identity and their reason for being. So I'm not seeing that. Do you see the civilian population? We call them revolutions, but protests in the streets that are unarmed and don't have any military support behind them. Do you see that having any impact on the future here?
Look, the Iranian people are the key to all of this, right? I mean, we can try to bomb them into submission. I don't know if that's going to work. We can put boots on the ground, as I think Donald Trump is threatening to do, but I don't think we want to have hundreds of thousands of troops. I think, we're loath to do that in the political environment in which we operate right now in the United States. So what that leaves us with is the Iranian people. And I do think that, they have come out multiple times since 2009 protesting this radical regime. You are 100% right. There's nothing Iranian about this regime. They are a radical Shiite revolutionary regime. It is a toxic ideology, and it needs to be brought down. It's the people of Iran who are more secular in nature, more pro-America, more pro-West, more pro-Israel. We need to get them what they need. I mentioned this earlier. We need to get them cash. We need to get them weapons. We need to get them intelligence, communication systems. We need to help them organize, because that is, after the guns fall silent, let's say we don't bring down the regime, they are our big hope here. They're the ones who can actually get this done. Now, they just suffered a significant beating, right? I mean, the regime killed 35,000 people in the month of January. This is a massive war crime. And of course, people in Iran are afraid to come out of their homes again. By the way, they're afraid because the bombs are still dropping as well. But these are the people that we need to invest in. I hope they're ready. I hope most importantly, I hope they're unified and brave, because we need them to be both if this thing is going to succeed.
Despite heavy losses, Iran and Hezbollah continue missile attacks on Israel. And when those warning sirens sound, tens of thousands run to bomb shelters. Paul Petit here provides a glimpse of what happens when the alarms go off. Take a look.
Missile alerts, an all too familiar sound across Israel. Day or night, when sirens blare, everything stops, and it's time to run for shelter. How many times have you had to take cover since the war began, if you guessed?
Dozens. Like, I don't know if I could count. I mean, maybe 15, 20 times.
Israel's Home Front Command has issued hundreds of these alerts since the war began.
The alarm goes off, and for a minute I'm like, I go into that PTSD mode.
When it happens, instinct takes over, and you rush to shelter. Outside, you find cover fast. On the road, even an overpass can become your only protection.
There's trauma attached to the experience.
This gives you an idea of just how wild it gets when the sirens go off. Some people live in this building, like I do. Some people literally come off the streets. They find wherever the closest shelter is. And see these gentlemen over there and these ladies all dressed up? The groom's back there. They're supposed to be getting married today. And right now, they're stuck here in the shelter with me.
We were on our way to the wedding. We were doing an outdoor photo shoot.
More than a month into the war, the constant interruptions are wearing on daily life, turning even celebrations into uncertainty.
Because of the alarm, we're late. We're delaying the wedding, and we really hope that there will be no more alarms during the wedding, because otherwise it will ruin our wedding.
Still, the alerts keep coming. It begins with a shrieking warning from the Home Front Command app that a strike could be minutes away. The second alert indicates missiles in your area, sometimes followed by sirens outside.
You're not able to do regular life. You're always wondering when the sirens are going to go off. Like right now, I have vegetables cut upstairs, ready to go in the oven.
Meanwhile, people adapt and make the best of life underground. I once finished a meal in a restaurant basement kitchen. This group continues their workout in the underground staff room of their hotel. And for some, even a blank wall becomes a canvas.
I'm actually really grateful for our neighbors who started that. They have these crayons down here, these colors, these paints, and they just said, hey, color on the wall, have fun, have a blast. And it's been really nice for the girls.
For parents, it can be extremely challenging. Chrissy chooses to make it a life lesson.
We let them know that there are missiles coming, and we tell them about the Iron Dome, but we also recite Psalm 91. They know that, and they're under the shelter of God's wings.
Sarah uses it as a test of faith and a chance to hold on to something stronger than fear.
No matter what your denomination is, if you rely on God, it can carry you through these times, and that's exactly what it's for. And if you don't have the opportunity to exercise that muscle, so to speak, then how do you have the opportunity to put it into practice?
And then suddenly comes the all clear, a message that is safe to leave. Life can resume. This workout will continue upstairs. Dinner goes back in the oven, and this couple finally gets their wedding day.
Well, I hope with God's help the wedding will be quiet. And with God's help, I'm waiting for quieter and better days.
Paul Petit, CBN News, Jerusalem.
In the wake of devastating missile attacks, the Israel Trauma Coalition has become a lifeline for over 2,800 evacuees across 15 hotels. CBN Israel partners with this group to provide support for first responders and caregivers that help families affected by the war. Take a look.
As the war with Iran now stretches into the spring, Israel remains in the direct crosshairs of a relentless aerial assault.
A missile hit a neighborhood in Bet Shemesh. 9 people were killed. The whole house collapsed, and many people were evacuated from the neighboring houses because their houses too were impacted or destroyed.
That is the reality for thousands of families now living in hotels across Israel. To help them navigate this crisis, the Israel Trauma Coalition have stepped in to coordinate everything from psychiatric care to safe places for children to play.
We currently have here people from the 5 months old to 94 years old, and it's very challenging, not only because people are exposed to trauma and loss, but also because we have the challenge of securing the right food and the right social workers and the right therapy for all these people. We are working in 15 hotels throughout the country.
While the government provides basic aid, critical gaps remain, especially for the mental health of the first responders and clinicians who are reaching their breaking point. This is where the partnership with CBN Israel becomes a lifeline.
Our role is not to replace anybody, but to identify gaps of needs that have no response. The partnership with CBN enabled us to provide care for the caregivers, also a lot of care for first responders, play therapy, therapy at large, because there is not enough funding from therapy from the government. And so it is an honor to be able to talk to a partner who understands what's going on.
By funding the care for caregivers, CBN Israel ensures that the help stays where it is needed most, providing stability in a time of total uncertainty.
Personally, I had a very difficult time after the 7th of October. For the first time, after a long time, a few days ago, I was filled with hope because I feel that we are coping, that we are together. Finishing every day with a feeling of satisfaction that we did as the best we could is a good feeling, and I hope it will continue as long as we need it.
Christians around the world just celebrated Resurrection Sunday, the most important holy day for them of the year. And as Paul Strand reports from Jerusalem, 40 days before the crucifixion on Mount Tabor, Jesus gave a preview to 3 of his disciples about what was to come. Here's his conversation with Georgian and Coco Banoff.
The Gospels describe the transfiguration of Jesus on a mountain before his death. Matthew writes, "There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light." Luke recounts, "The appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became as bright as a flash of lightning." 2 men, Moses and Elijah, appeared in glorious splendor talking with Jesus.
It's a preview of how he'd be transformed after the resurrection, but also how believers in him will be transfigured. As 1 John 3 puts it, when he appears, we shall be like him.
So that powerful manifestation is just a prelude of what's going to happen to us.
Bible teachers Georgian and Coco Banoff emphasize the huge benefits Christ brought us through his death and resurrection.
That glory is also ours, that resurrection, life, glory, joy, happiness, peace.
According to the Apostle Paul, we will have glorified bodies like Moses and Elijah did when they met with Christ at the Transfiguration. As Paul's Philippians 3 says, he will take our mortal bodies and change them into glorious bodies like his own.
You know, the scripture says we go from glory to greater glory.
That means we go from being like Adam to being like Jesus. As 1 Corinthians puts it, just as we have borne the image of the man of dust, we shall also bear the image of the man of heaven. That would be the only way humans can stand in the presence of the all-powerful, pure, and holy God. Even the Israelites quaked in terror when witnessing God at Mount Sinai.
We're going to have a body that can handle his glorious presence. When the children of Israel, when he came on the mountain, they were terrified. They go, we can't handle this, you know. So the glory body is going to help us. I mean, it's going to enable us to behold his glory and rejoice forevermore.
These bodies will leave our sick, sinful flesh behind. And even now, believers can see some of the benefits.
We're much more than forgiven. We're washed, we're cleansed, we're able to be indwelt by his Holy Spirit, you know, who heals us. He heals hearts, minds, souls, everything, bodies.
Christ's glory and healing will belong to his followers for all eternity. As John writes in Revelation 21:4, he will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain.
In heaven, no more pain, suffering, but certainly it starts here. It is our inheritance. We're co-heirs with Christ.
Moses and Elijah appearing at the Transfiguration suggests we'll see those who've gone before us in heaven. Hebrews 12 reveals they're already watching us.
Yeah, it says we're surrounded with a cloud of witnesses.
Yeah, that's huge. I'm looking forward to seeing my mom.
As the Transfiguration ended, God came down in a cloud saying,
"This is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. Listen to him."
Georgian points out that's easier than you may think, since Christ dwells in us.
We need to listen to his voice, because his voice is inside. We have the mind of Christ and the thoughts of Christ, and we can hear the voice of God inside. That's huge.
And right after God said, listen to him, Jesus said to his terrified disciples, rise and have no fear.
That is the Bible's most frequent command, written hundreds of times, and also the best advice for living well. because fear can cripple the soul and break the spirit. 1 John 4 states, perfect love casts out fear. And free of fear, we can enjoy the benefits so richly bestowed by the resurrection.
Be not afraid, because he's always with us, never leave us, never forsake us.
Christ is in us. And, you know, we've joined him in his death, we've joined him in his burial, and now we certainly join him in his resurrection.
And now free to live our lives in God's joy, peace, and love. Paul Strand, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Oldest Christian communities is on the brink of disappearing. Decades of war and persecution in Iraq have driven most believers out of the country. One man is now working to restore hope and bring his people back home. George Thomas has more from northern Iraq.
In Erbil, just beyond the ancient citadel, lies a neighborhood unlike any other. This is Ankawa, a Christian enclave that has endured for nearly 2,000 years. Here, people still speak Aramaic, the language of Jesus.
This is a place of evangelization. This is a place where Christianity came right in the first century.
The Assyrian Church of the East, the Chaldean Catholic Church, and the Syriac Orthodox Church all trace their roots to this land, making Iraq home to some of the oldest Christian communities on earth. Today, however, that ancient presence is fading. The Christian population here has been shrinking for decades.
Every time there's a crisis, there is a war, there is a violence, there is a persecution. These old wounds start bleeding again.
What you're looking at there is the world's oldest Syriac Orthodox monastery, located here high up in the mountains of northern Iraq, overlooking the famous Nineveh Plains. You know, back in 2003, when the United States invaded this country, there were roughly about 1.5 million Iraqi Christians. Well, today that number has dropped dramatically to less than 130,000.
Yeah, it's a frightening situation.
The symbol of a fish. Ano Jawhar Abdoko is the only Christian member of the Kurdish government's cabinet. He says wave after wave of violence has pushed Christians out of their homes. It began after the 2003 invasion, then came the rise of ISIS, which forced more than 100,000 Christians to flee.
111 of our churches were attacked. 1,382 Christians were killed on identity only in 2 years. So our people were targeted because we are Christians.
The ones who decide to move here.
Among those who left decades ago and made the decision to come back is Dylan Adamat.
I used to come here as a child for holidays, just, for a few weeks. And going back to France was always a bit frustrating because I was missing here. There was something missing in my life, which was my Iraqi side after growing up in France.
For Adamat, this neighborhood isn't just where he's from, it's part of who he is.
This is my uncle's house. There is my cousin's house. This is my aunt's house there.
Each street holds a memory, each home a connection.
So this used to be the old consulate?
Yes, and it happens to be my cousin's house. So in the early 2000s, I know you'll say everybody's my cousin.
Born in Ankawa and raised in France, he spent years returning here as a child, never feeling at home anywhere else. For Adamat, this is more than geography. As an Aramaic-speaking Chaldean Christian, he sees Iraq as the cradle of his faith, language, and history.
We belong to this place and we need to come back. We need to be here to sustain, to thrive, to keep our culture, language, civilization, religion alive.
Now that heritage is at risk. After decades of violence and displacement, he fears it could disappear altogether.
Because we're at a very sensitive moment of history, we may disappear completely in a couple of generations. So if we don't do anything now about this, it will be too late in a few years.
In 2019, he left a successful law career in France and returned to Ankawa to start The Return, a non-profit helping Iraqi Christians come back to their ancestral home.
I wanted to normalize the idea of returning here, especially for our community. You know, we left for legitimate reasons. People were traumatized by wars and crisis, and but at a point, I realized that most of these people had this dream of coming back.
It's not an easy mission. Iraq remains unstable, and new regional tensions once again have families questioning if it's safe to return.
One of the key elements of our Christian faith is the hope, and I've noticed people had lost hope here. So my mission was this, to bring back this hope amongst our community, and this is deeply rooted in our Christian faith.
Still, since 2023, his organization has helped hundreds begin that journey home. Minister Abdoko sees signs of hope, especially here in Iraq's Kurdistan region.
In Ankawa, which is called the Vatican of Iraq or the Vatican of the East, we had only 2 churches. Now in Ankawa, 2003, only 2 churches. Now in Ankawa, we have more than 30 plus churches.
We are here to celebrate our faith, our brotherhood, our coexistence.
Last year, the region hosted its first Kurdistan National Prayer Breakfast, bringing together people of different faiths, a rare moment of unity in a divided region.
In Kurdistan, we are saying to all the Middle East that peace is possible, and diversity, religious and ethnic diversity, is not a threat.
Pastor Malaf Beythoun has seen that hope firsthand.
Kurdistan has become kind of like a safer place for many people over many years.
He started his church in 2012 with just 2 families. It's now one of Iraq's largest evangelical churches.
Here we have kind of like a freedom to work, to be officially recognized, to expand, to build, and even to reach out to the people, to have open service, to have whoever wants to come and visit the church. So that, and always, the government here will support the churches.
Still, those here know the future will not be easy.
It will never be completely at peace, but at the same time, it will never be dead.
George Thomas, CBN News, Ankawa, northern Iraq.
What's amazing is that Kurdistan is not really an official nation. It's this region within Iraq that has been self-carved out. It wasn't part of the plan of the Bush administration after the invasion of Iraq. There were some fundamental mistakes along the way, and the American government is absolutely responsible. Number one, in the aftermath of the Iraq War, the Bush administration installed Sharia law into the Constitution of Iraq, which for a Christian minority of 1.5 million is intolerable. Amazingly, under Saddam Hussein and the Ba'athist Party, they were protected. They weren't allowed to be overrun by the Muslims. And then the Obama administration, Obama pledged to withdraw all U.S. troops from Iraq. He fulfilled that pledge, and in that, ISIS arose in northern Iraq and devastated the Christian community, crucified Christians in their own villages. Absolutely horrific. But to see it rebuild gives me a lot of hope, and congratulations to the Christian Missionary Alliance. What an incredible pioneering work to go into the middle of that and say, we're going to start a church. That is living faith, and congratulations.
Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. And please remember to follow us on social media. And please keep praying for wisdom for President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, and that justice and freedom would be brought about in Iran and all of the Middle East.
And pray for the peace of Jerusalem and for all those caught in harm's way across the Middle East, and that God would thwart the plans of evil men.
I'm Chris Mitchell for Paul and me and for all of us here at the Jerusalem Bureau. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.
Ruimte voor geloof binnen de topsport. Fabienne Rietdijk, zij brengt de kerk naar de sporters toe. En ook met topsporter Ronel Rosier praten we over presteren, geloof en balans. En we ontmoeten coach Artine van Es. Zij vertelt dat echte groei begint bij weten wie je bent. Kijk naar Lief je zus.